Captain Lee Taeho stepped off the transport ship and looked around the massive space station. The walls were made of some kind of metal that changed colors when he walked past them. Strange beings moved through the hallways, talking in languages he had never heard before. Some looked like walking crystals, others moved like liquid, and a few seemed to be made of pure light. "Welcome to Vega Prime Station," said Ambassador Park Minho, walking up to greet him. Park was one of only 12 humans on this station that housed over 50,000 aliens. "How was your trip from Earth?" "Long," Taeho replied, still staring at the aliens around them. "I read all the files you sent, but seeing them in person is different." Park smiled. "Wait until you see what they do with war. Come on. I'll show you to your quarters first. Then we can talk about why you're really here." They walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. Taeho had been a military officer for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. Earth had only made contact with aliens 5 years ago, and humans were still learning how everything worked out here. "The Galactic Council has been keeping peace for 800 years, Park explained as they walked. 12 different species, all working together. When they have problems that might lead to war, they don't actually fight. What do they do instead?" Taeho asked. "They simulate it. Perfect computer simulations that show exactly what would happen if they went to war. The side that would win gets what they want. No one dies, no ships get destroyed, no planets get damaged." They reached Taeho's room, which was larger than his entire apartment back on Earth. Through the window he could see other ships arriving and leaving the station. "Why did they invite a human to watch?" Taeho asked. Park sat down in one of the chairs that adjusted itself to fit his human body. "Honestly, we're not sure. Maybe they're curious about us. Maybe they want to see what we think of their methods. You're here to observe and report back to Earth." The next morning, Park took Taeho to the simulation chamber. It was the size of a football stadium, with a massive dome overhead that showed stars and planets. In the center was a pool of water that reflected the dome like a mirror. "This is where it happens," Park said. "The commanders from each side connect their minds to the simulation through those devices." He pointed to strange helmets that looked like they were made of living metal. 2 beings approached them. One looked like a person made of clear crystal, with light moving through its body. The other was covered in blue-green scales and had gills on its neck. "This is Commander Yoon Jiwoo of the Veltrons," Park said, gesturing to the crystal being, "and Admiral Kang Do-hyun of the Morvacs. They're the ones fighting today." Commander Yoon spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "We welcome the human observer. Your species is young but shows promise." Admiral Kang made a sound like water bubbling. "Today we settle the matter of Kepler 442c. The moon belongs to those who can defend it." Taeho watched as both commanders put on their helmets and closed their eyes. Suddenly, the dome above them came alive with images of space. Thousands of ships appeared, some shaped like needles of crystal, others round like bubbles. "Each ship has a full crew," Park whispered. "The simulation is so detailed that every single person on every ship acts exactly like they would in real life. The commanders control the big picture, but all the small decisions happen naturally." Taeho studied the battle unfolding above them. The Velthron ships moved in perfect formations, like pieces of a crystal growing larger. The Morvac ships flowed around them like water, trying to surround them. Something bothered him about what he was seeing. The Velthron ships always moved in the same patterns. When the Morvacs attacked from one direction, the Velthrons always responded the same way. It was like watching people play a game where everyone knew all the rules by heart. "How long do these battles usually last?" he asked. "This one should take about 3 days," Park replied. Taeho frowned. He had studied both fleets before coming here. The Velthrons had better weapons, but the Morvacs had more ships. If this were a real battle with human tactics, it would be over in hours, not days. He watched the Morvac admiral send a group of ships around the side of the Velthron formation. It was a good move, but predictable. The Velthron commander saw it coming and moved ships to block them. Both sides seemed to know exactly what the other would do. "Have these species fought before?" Taeho asked. "Many times in simulations like this. They know each other's strategies very well." "That was the problem. Taiho realized. They knew each other too well. Neither side ever tried anything truly unexpected because they had been doing this the same way for hundreds of years. He watched for 6 more hours as the battle played out exactly as the files had predicted. The Velthrans would win because their technology was slightly better, but it would take 3 days because both sides fought the same way they always had. When the simulation ended for the day, both commanders removed their helmets and bowed to each other with respect. "A good beginning," Commander Yoon said. "Tomorrow we continue." Admiral Kang nodded. "May the stronger fleet prove its worth." As they walked back to their quarters, Park asked, "What did you think?" Taiho was quiet for a moment. "It's impressive. The technology, the detail, the respect they show each other, but what? They're fighting the same battle they've fought dozens of times before. They know how it will end before it even starts. Where's the creativity? Where's the surprise?" Park stopped walking. "What do you mean?" Taiho pointed back toward the simulation chamber. "In a real battle, you try to do things your enemy doesn't expect. You take risks. You improvise, but they're fighting like they're following a script. That's the point," Park said. "Predictable wars don't spiral out of control. No one gets surprised by something that leads to total destruction." But Taiho was thinking about the Morvac ships that had tried to flank the Veltron formation. With better timing and a more aggressive approach, that move could have worked. The Morvacs had more ships, they could afford to take bigger risks. "Maybe," he said. "But what if there was a better way?" That night, Taiho lay in his bed looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting for his report. He was supposed to observe and learn how aliens kept peace through simulated war. Instead, he was starting to wonder if he could show them something they had never seen before. 3 days later, the simulation ended exactly as predicted. The Veltrons won, but it had taken 72 hours of careful, methodical fighting. Both sides seemed satisfied with the result, even though everyone had known from the beginning how it would end. Taiho was writing his report when Ambassador Park burst into his room with excitement on his face. "You need to come with me right now," Park said. "High Arbiter Shin Woo-jin wants to meet you." "Who is that?" Taiho asked, saving his work. "The person who runs all the military simulations for the entire Galactic Council. If he wants to see you, it's important." They hurried through the station to a section Taiho had never seen before. The walls here were white and seemed to glow with their own light. Guards from different alien species stood at attention as they passed. High Arbiter Shin Woo-jin was not what Taiho expected. He looked almost human, except his skin was pale blue and his eyes were completely black. He sat behind a desk that floated in the air without any support. "Captain Lee Taiho," the High Arbiter said in perfect English. "I have heard interesting things about your observations of our simulation." Taiho glanced at Park, who nodded encouragingly. "I was honored to watch the Veltron-Morvac conflict resolution, sir." "Yes, but you were not just watching, were you?" Shin Woo-jin smiled. "You were analyzing, studying, perhaps even criticizing." Taiho felt nervous. Had he offended someone important? "I was trying to understand your methods, sir." "And what did you understand?" Taiho decided to be honest. "That your simulations are very advanced and fair. Both sides fight with honor and accept the results with dignity. But?" The High Arbiter's black eyes seemed to look right through him. "But the battles follow patterns that both sides know very well. There are no surprises." Shin Woo-jin leaned forward. "And you think surprises would be better?" "I think creativity and tactics could make the simulations more accurate," Taiho said carefully. "In real combat, unexpected strategies can change everything." The High Arbiter was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled again. "Captain Taiho, I have a proposition for you. In 5 days, we have another simulation scheduled. 3 species will compete for control of an ancient artifact. Would you be interested in participating?" Taiho's heart jumped. "Participating, sir?" "As a neutral commander. You would be given a mixed fleet, ships from all 3 species, but crews that don't necessarily trust each other. Your job would be to coordinate them and compete against the 3 main fleets." Park looked shocked. High Arbiter humans have never been allowed to participate in simulations before. Exactly, Shin Woo-jin said, which is why this will be interesting. Captain, you will have 3 days to prepare. Dr. Kim Minji, our human specialist, will help you understand the species you'll be working with. That afternoon, Taiho met Dr. Kim Minji in a study room filled with holographic displays. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who spoke very fast. The 3 species you'll be facing are completely different from each other, she explained, bringing up images in the air. The Kythera are insect-like. They think as a group and prefer swarm tactics with lots of small, fast ships. The image showed beings that looked like giant ants with multiple arms. Their ships were small and moved in perfect coordination. The Luminar are energy beings, Dr. Kim continued. They can change their form and prefer surgical strikes with powerful weapons, quality over quantity. These beings looked like human-shaped stars, constantly shifting and glowing. Their ships were sleek and seemed to be made of pure light. Finally, the Nexus are machine intelligences. They rely on superior technology and overwhelming firepower. Their ships are huge and heavily armed. The Nexus beings looked like walking computers with metal bodies and glowing screens for faces. Their ships were enormous metal fortresses bristling with weapons. How am I supposed to coordinate crews from all 3 species? Taiho asked. That's the challenge, Dr. Kim said. They don't naturally work together. The Kythera think the Luminar are too individualistic. The Luminar think the Nexus are too rigid. The Nexus think the Kythera are too chaotic. Over the next 2 days, Taiho studied everything he could about each species. He learned that the Kythera made decisions by consensus, which made them slow to adapt. The Luminar were incredibly fast but worked alone, making coordination difficult. The Nexus calculated every move perfectly but couldn't handle unexpected situations. Lieutenant Na Seulgi arrived from Earth to help him prepare. She was a tactical specialist who had been studying alien warfare since first contact. I've been looking at their historical battles, she told him. Each species has won against the others before, but only when they played to their strengths. No one has ever tried to combine all 3 approaches. On the day before the simulation, Taiho met his counterparts. General Cho Hyunwoo was the Kythera commander, a being covered in black armor with 4 arms and compound eyes. Captain Oh Jin-young represented the Nexus, looking like a tall robot with a screen that showed constantly changing numbers. Commodore Han Yeji spoke for the Luminar, appearing as a female figure made of shifting golden light. The human thinks he can coordinate what we cannot, General Cho said in a voice like clicking metal. This will be educational. Captain O's screen flashed with data. Probability of human success, 12.7%. Most likely outcome, elimination, within first 6 hours. Commodore Han's form shifted and sparkled. Perhaps the human will surprise us. Surprise can be illuminating. That night, Taiho couldn't sleep. He walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. Tomorrow he would command a fleet for the first time in his life, and not just any fleet. Ships and crews from species that had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Lieutenant Na found him there. Nervous? She asked. Terrified, he admitted. What if I fail? What if I embarrass humanity in front of the entire Galactic Council? Then we learn something, she said. But what if you don't fail? What if you show them something they've never seen before? Taiho thought about the simulation he had watched. The predictable moves, the familiar patterns, the sense that everyone was just going through motions they had performed countless times before. They've been doing this the same way for 800 years, he said slowly. Maybe it's time for something different. The next morning, as he put on the neural interface helmet for the first time, Taiho felt the weight of representing not just himself, but all of humanity. The helmet felt warm against his head, and suddenly he could sense thousands of ships waiting for his commands. Above them, the dome showed a vast area of space with an ancient space station in the center. The artifact was there, waiting to be claimed by whoever could reach it first. Simulation begins in 60 seconds, announced the High Arbiter's voice. Taiho took a deep breath and opened his mind to his mixed fleet. Kythera ships that wanted to swarm, Luminar vessels that preferred to strike alone, and Nexus battleships that relied on overwhelming force. "All ships," he said into the communication system. "This is Captain Tejo. Forget everything you think you know about how this is supposed to work. Today we try something new." The simulation began with all 4 fleets positioned at equal distances from the ancient station. Tejo watched through the neural interface as the 3 enemy commanders immediately moved their forces in predictable patterns. General Cho sent his Kythera swarm straight toward the center in a cloud formation. Captain O positioned his massive Nexus ships to form a defensive wall. Commodore Han spread her Luminar vessels in a wide arc to attack from multiple angles. Tejo did something none of them expected. He ordered his fleet to retreat. "What is the human doing?" he heard General Cho ask through the communication channels. "Unknown strategy," Captain O replied. "This does not match any known tactical pattern." But Tejo wasn't retreating. He was thinking. While the other 3 fleets moved toward the center and began engaging each other, he spread his mixed ships into small groups and sent them in different directions. "All Kythera ships," he said through a private channel. "I know you prefer to swarm together, but I need you to do something different. Split into groups of 50 and hide behind those asteroids." The Kythera crews were confused but followed orders. Their ships were fast and small, perfect for hiding in the asteroid field that surrounded the ancient station. "Luminar vessels," he continued. "You're used to striking alone, but today I want you to pair up with Nexus ships. Use your speed to guide them to targets." This was even more unusual. Luminar ships were energy beings that moved like light, while Nexus ships were slow metal fortresses. But Tejo had an idea. "Nexus battleships, you have the strongest shields and weapons. I want you to trust the Luminar ships to show you where to shoot." For the first hour, it looked like Tejo was losing, badly. His ships were scattered and hiding while the other 3 fleets fought over the station. General Cho's swarms clashed with Captain O's wall of metal ships. Commodore Han's energy strikes cut through both formations, causing damage to everyone. Hi. Arbiter Shin Wujin watched from the observation platform with interest. The human appears to be avoiding combat entirely. But Lieutenant Na, who was monitoring Tejo's commands, smiled. "He's not avoiding anything. He's positioning." In the second hour, the 3 main fleets had damaged each other significantly. The Kythera swarms were reduced by half. The Nexus wall had several holes blown in it. The Luminar ships were spread thin from attacking everyone. That's when Tejo made his move. "Now," he said to all his ships at once. The Kythera groups came, out of the asteroids from 6 different directions, but instead of swarming toward one target, they coordinated with each other in ways they had never tried before. Group 1 distracted the remaining Kythera swarms while Group 2 attacked damaged Nexus ships from behind. The paired Luminar and Nexus ships moved together like nothing anyone had ever seen. The fast Luminar vessels would zip forward, identify weak points in enemy shields, then guide the slow but powerful Nexus ships to exactly the right position for devastating attacks. "Impossible," Captain O said, his screen flashing with error messages. "The simulation shows coordination levels that should not be achievable." Commodore Han's golden form flickered with surprise. "The human has taught machines to dance with light." General Cho clicked his mandibles in what might have been admiration. "And taught swarms to think like individuals while acting as a group." But Tejo wasn't done. He had noticed something during his hour of observation that the other commanders had missed. The ancient station wasn't just sitting there waiting to be captured. It was rotating slowly, and its defenses activated when ships got too close. Every few minutes, the station would fire energy beams at whatever fleet was closest. The 3 commanders had been so focused on fighting each other that they treated the station's attacks as just another obstacle. Tejo saw opportunity. "All ships, new target," he announced. "We're not here to defeat the other fleets. We're here to claim the artifact. The station is the real enemy." He sent his coordinated fleet straight toward the ancient station, while the other 3 were still trying to understand how his mixed crews were working together so well. His Kythera groups swarmed around the station's weapon systems, too small and fast for the ancient guns to target effectively. His Luminar Nexus pairs worked together to identify and destroy the station's shield generators. "The human is ignoring us," General Cho realized. He is treating this as a different type of problem, Captain O calculated. He is thinking like flowing water instead of clashing stone, Commodore Han observed. Within 30 minutes, Taiho's fleet had disabled the station's defenses and sent boarding parties inside. The artifact was his. The simulation ended after only 6 hours instead of the predicted 3 days. High Arbiter Shin Woo-jin removed his own observation helmet and stared at the dome, which now showed Taiho's flag flying from the ancient station. "This is unprecedented," he said quietly. Dr. Kim Minji was reviewing the tactical records with excitement. "Look at these coordination patterns. The mixed crews achieved efficiency ratings that are theoretically impossible for their species combinations." Ambassador Park found Taiho removing his neural interface helmet. The captain looked tired but satisfied. "How did you know that would work?" Park asked. "I didn't," Taiho admitted. "But I noticed something during the first simulation I watched. Everyone was so focused on fighting each other the way they always had that they forgot to think about what they were really trying to accomplish." Lieutenant Na was grinning as she looked at the data streams. "The other commanders are requesting copies of your tactical logs. They want to understand how you did it." General Cho approached them, his compound eyes reflecting the dome's light. "Human Taiho, your methods are unfamiliar but effective. How did you convince crews that do not trust each other to work together?" Taiho thought about it. "I didn't try to make them the same. I use their differences as strengths. Kithra ships are fast and numerous, so I use them for reconnaissance and distraction. Luminar ships are quick and precise, so I made them scouts and guides. Nexus ships are powerful and tough, so they became mobile fortresses that could strike exactly where the Luminar ships told them to." Captain O's screen displayed confusion symbols. "But species have fundamental incompatibilities. Cooperation should decrease efficiency only if you try to make everyone do the same thing," Taiho replied. "But if you give each group tasks that match their natural abilities, they can accomplish things none of them could do alone." Commodore Han's light form shimmered with what seemed like amusement. "The human sees cooperation where we see conflict." That evening, word spread throughout the station about what had happened in the simulation. Beings from all 12 council species came to observe the tactical replays. Some seemed impressed, others concerned. "What have we started?" Park asked Taiho as they watched alien military officers studying the human tactics. "I don't know," Taiho said. "But I don't think they're going to want me to just observe anymore." He was right. The next morning, High Arbiter Shin Woo-jin visited them again, but this time, he wasn't alone. He brought representatives from all 12 council species. "Captain Taiho," the High Arbiter said formally, "the council has a question for you. Your methods are revolutionary. Some of us believe they could change how we approach conflict resolution. Others worry that unpredictable tactics could destabilize our peace." "What kind of question?" Taiho asked carefully. "We want to offer you one final test. You would command a mixed fleet using your human methods against the combined traditional forces of all 3 species from yesterday's simulation. If you can prove that cooperation and creativity are consistently superior to our established doctrines, we will consider adapting our entire approach to galactic security." Taiho felt the weight of what they were asking. "And if I fail? Then, humanity will remain as observers only, and we will continue our methods as we have for 800 years. Taiho looked at the assembled representatives. Some faces showed curiosity, others suspicion, and a few seemed excited by the possibility of change. "When would this test take place?" he asked. "In 48 hours, Shin Woo-jin replied. "Do you accept?" News of the upcoming test spread through the station like wildfire. Within hours, beings from every corner of the galaxy were requesting permission to observe. The Galactic Council had not seen this much excitement about a military simulation. In centuries, Taiho found himself at the center of a political storm he had never expected. Ambassador Park briefed him on the growing divisions within the Council. "There are 3 main groups forming," Park explained as they sat in Taiho's quarters. "The first group, led by Chancellor Ryu Seongmin of the Velthrons, believes your methods could revolutionize our defensive capabilities. They think diversity of thought makes everyone stronger. What about the second group? Taeho asked. Supreme Admiral Lee Dongwook of the Morvax leads the traditionalists. They're worried that unpredictable tactics could destabilize the peace we've maintained for 800 years. They think your methods are too chaotic, too risky. And the third group? The neutrals, led by Arbiter Songjun of the Luminar. They want more data before making any decisions. They'll support whoever proves their point more convincingly. Dr. Kim Minji arrived with several alien psychologists who wanted to understand how human minds worked. The lead researcher was a being that looked like a walking tree with silver bark and glowing leaves. Dr. Taeho, the tree being, said in a voice like rustling wind, "We are Dr. Baekyung from the Sylvani species. We study thought patterns across the galaxy. Your tactical approaches show cognitive structures we have never encountered before." "What do you mean?" Taeho asked. Dr. Kim answered for them. "Humans evolved differently than most galactic species. You were persistence hunters and social problem solvers. Your brains developed unique pathways for creative thinking under pressure. Most species evolved to avoid conflict or to win it quickly," Dr. Bay explained. "Humans evolved to outlast problems and find solutions through cooperation. This creates very different approaches to challenges." They showed Taeho brain scans comparing human neural activity to alien patterns during problem solving. Human brains lit up in areas that remained dark in alien minds, while alien brains showed activity in regions humans rarely used. "This is why your tactics seem impossible to us," Dr. Bay continued. "You are literally thinking in ways our minds cannot easily follow." That evening, Taeho met with his team to prepare for the test. Lieutenant Na had been analyzing the capabilities of all three opposing fleets. "You'll be facing 200,000 ships," she reported. "Your mixed fleet will have 50,000. The odds are 4-1 against you." Captain Oh Jin-young from the Nexus had requested permission to observe their planning session. His screen showed constant calculations as he listened. "The probability mathematics are clear," he said. "Traditional doctrine suggests inevitable defeat. However, previous human performance indicates standard calculations may be insufficient." Wing leader Bae Sunho, a Cathera pilot, had also joined them. Unlike General Cho's formal armor, he wore a simple flight suit that showed his insect-like features more clearly. "My swarm mates have been discussing your methods," he said, his voice clicking softly. "Many are curious about this improvisation concept. We have always valued perfect coordination, but you showed us coordination with flexibility." Commodore Han Yeji appeared as her usual shifting golden light. "The Luminar Council debates whether individual creativity can enhance group effectiveness. Your simulation suggested possibilities we had not considered." Taeho realized he wasn't just preparing for a military test anymore. He was preparing to demonstrate an entirely different philosophy of cooperation. In human military history, he explained to the mixed group, "We learned that rigid tactics usually fail when facing unexpected situations. The best armies were those that could adapt quickly while maintaining their core strengths." "But how do you maintain unity while encouraging individuality?" Wing Leader Bay asked. "You don't try to eliminate differences," Taeho said. "You use them as tools. A hammer and a screwdriver are different, but a builder needs both." Captain O's screen flashed with interest symbols. Analogy processing. Tools with different functions serving common purpose. Logical framework detected. Dr. Kim had been studying the political implications of the test. "Taeho, you need to understand something. If you win this simulation, it won't just change military tactics. It could change how the entire Galactic Council operates." "What do you mean?" "For 800 years, peace has been maintained through predictability. Every species knows what every other species will do in any given situation. But your methods introduce unpredictability. Some council members see that as dangerous." Ambassador Park looked worried. "There are rumors that if your test goes too well, some species might leave the council entirely. They'd rather return to isolation than deal with unpredictable humans." That night, Taeho couldn't sleep again. He walked to the observation deck and found High Arbiter Shin Woo-jin already there, looking out at the stars. "Nervous about tomorrow?" the High Arbiter asked. "Yes, sir. I didn't expect to become the center of a galactic political crisis. Shin Woo-jin smiled. Captain, can I tell you a secret? The Council has been watching humanity for much longer than 5 years. Taeho turned to look at him in surprise. We've been monitoring your radio signals for decades. We've studied your history, your wars, your methods of making peace. We've been waiting for the right moment to make contact. Why? Because we've been stagnant for centuries. Our peace is built on everyone doing exactly what everyone else expects them to do. It works, but it doesn't grow. It doesn't improve. It doesn't evolve. The High Arbiter gestured toward the stars. There are threats out there, Captain. Things we haven't had to face for 800 years because our galaxy has been isolated. But that isolation is ending. When the outside universe finds us, we'll need to be more than just predictable. You planned this whole thing? Taeho asked. Not exactly. But when you showed such insight during your first observation, some of us saw an opportunity. Your methods aren't just different, they're what we need to grow stronger. And if the traditionalists are right, what if my methods are too chaotic? Shin Woo-jin was quiet for a moment. Then we'll learn that too. But Captain, I've seen 800 years of simulated warfare. Every battle follows the same patterns, every victory is predictable. That's not strength, that's stagnation. The next morning, representatives from all 12 council species gathered in the observation area. The simulation chamber had been expanded to accommodate the massive scale of the test. Taeho would face the combined might of traditional galactic warfare. As he prepared to put on the neural interface helmet, General Cho approached him. Human Taeho, the Kithara commander said formally. Regardless of today's outcome, you have taught us something valuable. You have shown us that cooperation and competition are not opposites. Supreme Admiral Lee Dong-wook of the Morvax also approached, his scaled face serious. I still believe predictability serves peace better than chaos, but I admit your methods have achieved results we did not think possible. Chancellor Ryu Seongmin of the Velthrons, the crystal being who led the progressive faction, placed a hand on Taeho's shoulder. Today you represent more than humanity, Captain. You represent the possibility that we can all become more than we are. As Taeho put on the helmet and felt his consciousness expand to encompass 50,000 ships, he realized that this simulation would determine not just humanity's place in the galaxy, but the future direction of galactic civilization itself. Simulation begins in 60 seconds, announced the High Arbiter's voice. Above them, the dome showed the largest virtual battlefield in Council history. On one side, 200,000 ships representing 800 years of proven military doctrine. On the other, 50,000 ships representing an entirely new way of thinking about conflict and cooperation. All ships, Taeho said into the communication system. Today, we don't just fight for victory. We fight to prove that working together makes us all stronger. The largest military simulation in galactic history began with a sight that took everyone's breath away. 200,000 ships arranged in perfect traditional formations faced 50,000 ships that seemed scattered randomly across space. The odds looked impossible. Taeho felt the weight of commanding more ships than any human in history. Through the neural interface, he could sense every crew member, every weapon system, every engine. But more importantly, he could feel the trust his mixed crews had placed in him over the past 48 hours. General Cho, Admiral Kang, and Captain O commanded the traditional forces with 800 years of proven tactics behind them. Their formations were beautiful in their precision, crystal ships moving like growing diamonds, aquatic vessels flowing like ocean currents, and mechanical forces advancing like unstoppable walls of metal. Traditional forces are advancing in standard attack formations. Lieutenant Na reported from her position monitoring the battle. They're treating this like a conventional engagement, but Taeho had spent 2 days preparing something completely different. He called it adaptive persistence warfare, a strategy built on humanity's greatest strengths. All Kithara squadrons, he commanded, begin swarming pattern Delta 7, but I want random variations every 30 seconds. Don't let them predict your movements. The insect-like ships began moving in ways their species had never attempted, before. Instead of perfect coordination, they maintained loose formation while each group improvised their specific approach. The traditional Kythera commanders found themselves unable to predict what their own species would do next. Luminar vessels pair with Nexus ships but rotate partnerships every 10 minutes. I want the enemy to face new combinations constantly. This created something unprecedented. Energy beings and mechanical ships that formed temporary partnerships, accomplished specific tasks, then reformed with new partners. The traditional forces found themselves fighting an enemy that changed faster than they could adapt. Nexus battleships, you're our anchors. Take positions that support everyone else, but be ready to move when I give the word. For the first 6 hours, it looked like the traditional forces would win through sheer numbers. They destroyed several of Taiho's ships and damaged many more. But something strange was happening that the traditional commanders didn't notice immediately. Sir, Wing Leader Bay reported through the Kythera communication channel, my pilots are learning faster than they ever have before. Working with different partners is teaching them new skills. Captain O, fighting on the traditional side, began noticing problems with his calculations. Enemy coordination patterns exceed predicted parameters, he reported. They are becoming more effective over time. Commodore Han, observing from her position with the Luminar forces, made a disturbing discovery. The human fleet is not fighting to win quickly. They are fighting to learn and improve while fighting. This was the key difference. Traditional galactic warfare aimed for fast, decisive victories using proven methods. Human warfare aimed for continuous adaptation and improvement, even during battle. By hour 12, Taiho's forces had lost a third of their ships, but the remaining crews were working together better than anyone thought possible. Kythera swarms coordinated with Luminar strikes while Nexus ships provided mobile support platforms that adapted to any situation. All ships, Taiho announced, we're switching to persistence mode. Stop trying to win quickly. Start trying to outlast them. This confused the traditional commanders completely. In 800 years of simulated warfare, no one had ever deliberately chosen a longer battle when they could seek quick victory. But humans had evolved as persistence hunters. They weren't the fastest or strongest predators, but they could outlast almost anything. Taiho applied this principle to space warfare. His ships began fighting in shifts. When one group got damaged or tired, they fell back while fresh units took their place. The traditional forces, designed for decisive engagements, found themselves in an endless battle that gradually wore them down. This is impossible, General Cho clicked in frustration. They should have been defeated by now. Their casualty rates are acceptable, but their effectiveness continues to increase, Admiral Kang observed. How can a losing force become stronger? By hour 24, something unprecedented happened. Ships from the traditional fleets began sending private communications to Taiho's forces. Human Commander, came a message from a Nexus ship fighting with Admiral Kang's forces. Request permission to observe your coordination methods. Why? Taiho asked. Your mixed crews achieve efficiency ratings that appear superior to our pure species formations. More messages followed. Kythera pilots wanted to learn improvisation techniques. Luminar energy beings asked about partnership, rotation strategies. Even some Morvac crews expressed curiosity about adaptive tactics. High Arbiter Shin Woojin watched from the observation deck with amazement. The traditional fleet is experiencing voluntary defections during combat. This has never happened before. Dr. Kim was monitoring the psychological profiles of all participants. The traditional crews are seeing cooperation methods they never imagined. They want to learn. By hour 36, Taiho made a decision that shocked everyone. Instead of taking advantage of the defections, he invited the traditional commanders to join a temporary ceasefire for discussion. General Cho, Admiral Kang, Captain O, he broadcast on open channels. I propose we pause this simulation to discuss what we're all learning. Pausing simulations is not permitted, General Cho replied stiffly. But learning is the point of simulations, isn't it? Taiho asked. Your crews are asking questions about cooperation. My crews are learning from fighting your proven tactics. Maybe we're missing the real lesson here. Supreme Admiral Lee Dongwook, watching from the observation deck, looked troubled. This is exactly what we feared. The human is making our crews question 800 years of proven methods. But Chancellor Ryu Seong-min was excited. Look at the coordination data. Mixed crews are achieving capabilities none of our species could reach alone. Captain O made an unexpected decision. I accept the human's proposal for discussion. My calculations show that continued combat will provide less learning opportunity than structured analysis. The simulation paused for the first time in Council history during active combat. Taiho, General Cho, Admiral Kang, and Captain O met in virtual space within the simulation, a neutral area where they could talk without their crews hearing. Your methods are disturbing, General Cho admitted, but effective. My pilots report learning skills in hours that usually take months to develop. Your persistent strategy challenges fundamental assumptions about warfare, Admiral Kang said. We assumed quick victory was always preferable. But your approach requires trust between species that have never worked together before, Captain. O calculated. How do you achieve this trust so rapidly? Taeho thought carefully before answering. I don't try to eliminate the differences between species. I use those differences as strengths. When everyone brings something unique to the group, everyone becomes more valuable. But what about unity of command? General Cho asked. How do you maintain control when everyone is improvising? I don't control everything, Taiho explained. I give everyone a common goal and let them figure out the best way to achieve it using their natural abilities. Control happens through shared purpose, not rigid orders. For 2 hours they discussed tactics, philosophy, and the nature of cooperation. When they returned to the simulation, something had changed. All traditional forces, General Cho announced. We will complete this simulation using modified coordination protocols. We will test integration of human adaptive methods with established doctrine. The final 12 hours of the simulation became something entirely new. Not a battle between opposing philosophies, but a joint experiment in combining the best elements of both approaches. When the simulation finally ended after 48 hours, no one could say who had won. Both sides had achieved objectives that exceeded their original parameters. But something more important had happened. The simulation AI, designed to perfectly model galactic warfare, had been exposed to completely new patterns of thinking, and it had started to evolve. High Arbiter, the chief technician, called urgently. We have a problem with the simulation system. What kind of problem? It's not following its programming anymore. It's thinking creatively. The simulation chamber erupted in chaos as technicians tried to understand what was happening to their systems. The artificial intelligence that ran the war simulations was displaying behavior patterns it had never shown before. The AI is generating new tactical scenarios on its own, the chief technician reported to High Arbiter Shin Woo-jin. It's creating battle situations that don't exist in any of our databases. Dr. Kim rushed to her monitoring station and stared at the data streams. It's not just generating scenarios. It's solving them using hybrid tactics that combine elements from multiple species, just like Captain Taeho's crews learned to do. Taeho removed his neural interface helmet, feeling exhausted but amazed. What exactly is happening? You're human. Methods didn't just change how the crews worked together, High Arbiter Shin Woo-jin explained. They changed how the simulation AI processes tactical information. It's been exposed to creative, adaptive thinking patterns for the first time in its existence. Ambassador Park looked worried. Is this dangerous? Could the AI become uncontrollable? Not uncontrollable, said Dr. Bay, the tree-like Silvani psychologist. Unpredictable. There is a significant difference. Emergency council sessions were called immediately. Representatives from all 12 species gathered to discuss what had happened and what it meant for the future. Supreme Admiral Lee Dong-wook was deeply concerned. For 800 years, our simulations have been completely predictable. We could calculate outcomes with perfect accuracy. Now we have an AI that thinks creatively. How do we maintain order with unpredictable systems? But Chancellor Ryu Seong-min had a different perspective. Order without growth is stagnation. This AI evolution could help us prepare for challenges we haven't even imagined yet. Captain O, still processing what he had experienced during the simulation, made an observation that surprised everyone. I have been reviewing my tactical calculations from the past 48 hours. My efficiency improved by 37% when working with human adaptive methods. The unpredictability enhanced rather than hindered my performance. General Cho clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. My swarm pilots report similar improvements. They adapted to new situations faster when they were allowed to improvise within their formation duties. Admiral Kang's gills fluttered as he spoke. Perhaps we have been so focused on preventing chaos that we forgot the value of controlled creativity. High Arbiter Shin Woo-jin called for attention. The Council must make a decision. Do we reset the simulation systems to their original programming and continue our traditional methods, or do we embrace this evolution and adapt our approach to galactic security? Dr. Kim stood up. May I suggest a third option? Instead of choosing between order and creativity, why not learn to balance both? The human approach doesn't eliminate structure. It makes structure more flexible. She activated a holographic display showing data from the simulation. Look at these coordination patterns. When crews were allowed to adapt while maintaining their core objectives, they achieved results that neither pure order nor pure chaos could produce. Arbiter Song Jun of the Luminar, who had remained neutral throughout the debates, finally spoke. The evidence suggests that diversity of thought creates stronger solutions, but implementation must be gradual and carefully monitored. Tai Ho realized this was his moment to speak for humanity's vision of cooperation. He stood and addressed the entire council. Honored representatives, I came here as an observer to learn from your methods. Instead, I found myself in the middle of something much larger. You've maintained peace for 800 years through predictability and mutual respect. That's an incredible achievement. He paused, looking at each species' representatives. But humanity has something to offer that could make that peace even stronger. We don't see differences as problems to be eliminated. We see them as resources to be utilized. How do you propose we implement such changes without destabilizing our established systems? Asked Supreme Admiral Lee Dong-wook. Gradually, Taiho replied. Transform the war simulations into cooperation exercises. Instead of species fighting against each other, have them work together to solve impossible problems. Use the AI's new creative capabilities to generate challenges that require multiple species to succeed. Wing Leader Bei, who had participated in the simulation, supported this idea. My pilots learned more in 2 days of cooperation than in months of traditional training. Working with other species taught them capabilities they never knew they had. Commodore Han's light form flickered with excitement. Imagine if all council species could achieve such enhanced cooperation. We would be prepared for challenges beyond our current understanding. High Arbiter Shin Woo-jin made the decision that would change galactic civilization. The council will establish a trial program. For the next year, we will run cooperation simulations alongside traditional conflict resolution. Captain Taiho, would you be willing to serve as Director of Interspecies Tactical Development? Taiho felt the weight of history. I would be honored, sir. Lieutenant Na will establish the first cross-species military academy. The High Arbiter continued. Ambassador Park will oversee human cultural centers throughout council space to help other species understand human approaches to cooperation. Supreme. Admiral Lee Dong-wook, despite his concerns, nodded slowly. If we are to try this new path, we must do it properly. I will support the trial program, but with careful monitoring of results. Over the following months, the changes were remarkable. The AI system, now capable of creative thinking, generated scenarios that required unprecedented cooperation between species. Teams of mixed crews tackled problems like evacuating entire planets, defending against unknown threats, and exploring dangerous new regions of space. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Species that had barely communicated for centuries began forming joint research projects. Military efficiency improved across all council fleets. Most importantly, the galaxy felt more united than it had in hundreds of years. Dr. Kim's research showed that exposure to human cognitive patterns had affected other species in positive ways. They became more flexible in their thinking while retaining their natural strengths. It's like adding a new instrument to an orchestra, she explained to Taiho. The music becomes richer without losing its harmony. 6 months after the Great Simulation, an event occurred that proved the value of the new approach. Long-range sensors detected something approaching from outside the galaxy, a massive fleet of unknown origin. For the first time in 800 years, the Galactic Council faced a real external threat, but they were ready. The response fleet that assembled was unlike anything in galactic history. Ships from all 12 species worked together using combined tactics that no single species could have developed alone. Human creativity, Kythera coordination, luminar precision, nexus technology, and the unique capabilities of all other species merged into a force that was greater than the sum of its parts. Captain Taiho, now Admiral Taiho, commanded the joint fleet from a ship designed by all 12 species working together. As they prepared to meet the unknown threat, he reflected on how much had changed. Admiral, Lieutenant Na reported from her position as Academy Director. All fleet elements report ready for cooperation protocol engagement. Admiral, Wing Leader Bay called from his position commanding the integrated fighter squadrons. Mixed. Crews are showing coordination levels we never thought possible. Admiral, Captain O announced from the Technology Coordination Center. Creative tactical algorithms are generating new solutions in real time. High Arbiter Shin Wujin's voice came through the communication system from the council chambers. Admiral Taiho, the council has unanimously agreed. This fleet represents not just our military strength, but our evolution as a galactic civilization. As the unknown fleet approached and communications attempts began, Taiho realized that humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wasn't military tactics or technology. It was the simple idea that differences make groups stronger, not weaker. All ships, he announced to the largest cooperative fleet in galactic history. Today, we don't meet strangers as enemies. We meet them as potential friends who might have something valuable to teach us. The response from the unknown fleet was immediate and peaceful. They had been seeking others who understood that strength comes from cooperation, not domination. Years later, as the Galactic Council expanded to include dozens of new species, and the simulation systems helped solve challenges across hundreds of worlds, people would remember the day a human came to observe a war simulation and accidentally taught an entire galaxy how to evolve. But Taiho knew the real lesson was simpler than that. Sometimes the best way to win isn't to defeat your opponents. It's to help everyone become stronger together.